Yes, welcome everyone to our webinar on the road ahead, trends in corporate social impact. We'll be talking about our 9th Pro Bono State of the Practice report, and we have a number of great speakers on our panel today, and I'll have the chance to introduce them and then give them the opportunity to come on camera and introduce themselves in a few minutes. But first, some expectations and introductions about myself. My name is Gavin Sepelak. I am the Senior Vice President at Pyxera Global. And some expectations for today. We are looking around 45 minutes. We will save another 10-15 minutes for Q&A. And so get your questions ready. Use the chat, the Q&A function in the Zoom bar there to put in your questions. We will curate those and answer those towards the end. We will send the report and the recording after this. And we really want to have a casual and engaging conversation. So when I was talking to the speakers, the theme is small, cozy room, obviously virtually. And we want everyone, you as attendees, to walk away with some new lessons learned, some new facts, something that's really going to help you in your work. But also, more importantly, I think we all want to have some fun. That's always an important piece, especially nowadays. And before I get to some thank yous, something that a very smart person asked me recently, what brings you joy? I was thinking about this webinar, and it was in context of this webinar, and I think I really enjoy helping people achieve their goals. Helping others that are less fortunate, but also helping companies with their journey, and engaging the social sector and engaging their employees. So my goal is for you to learn something. If I haven't achieved that, or chief speakers haven't achieved that, please come talk to me, email me. We'll be sharing my email. If you want to run through the report in detail, please do so. But quick thank you to SAP for sponsoring this report. Their sponsorship and partnership would not have made this report possible. So we really appreciate that. But also, thank you to Amira Ahmad, some Pyxera Global staff, Amira Ahmad, Catherine Frazier, Diane Bohm, Alex Zhao, Katie Levy, for really helping to put this comprehensive report together. I'm sure I need to move on. So first, we're going to start out with something a little bit engaging. We have 2 poll questions, so I think my colleagues are going to put that up there. What has brought you to today's webinar? What are you interested in learning? And we will share the results of these 2 poll questions afterwards. Interesting about the evolving role of sustainability and CSR leaders. Second, we have how to engage partners to navigate social crisis through social impact programming. All right, we have more than half of the participants, 71% have voted. So it looks like about interested in the evolving role of sustainability and CSR leaders. At 58% and 34%, we have how to engage partners to navigate social crisis through social impact programming. And I believe we will go to the next poll. What are you interested in learning about? I'm interested in learning how to use Pro Bono too. Let's see your responses. That was a flurry of activity, thank you. So at 61%, we have addressed urgent social challenges in the future. That's a very common theme that came out in the report. Have a greater presence in the community, help the global economy recover. Those seem like the top 3 so far. engage employees in racial justice programs as well. And the other, I would be curious to know about, so maybe that can be brought forth during the Q&A session, but 64% address urgent social challenges, and then we have 42% have a greater presence in the community, and 39% engaging employees in racial justice programs. Great. That's really helpful. That gives us some guidelines of things we want to cover today, and we will cover a lot of this in the review of the state of the practice and the 5 trends, but also during the conversation with our speakers today. So I think we'll end the polling there. I think I can remove it. Great. So I hope everyone can see my slides. A number of things to get through, and we'll get into the 5 trends. But just quickly, what is the 9th Global Pro Bono State of the Practice? Again, thank you to SAP for sponsoring this. When we were looking at this year's 9th State of the Practice report, we kind of put threw the old playbook out the window. This past year has been so different in so many ways. Obviously, we've all been through that. And we want to look at the evolution of pro bono or pro bono and how companies perceive it moving forward. So we surveyed a number of companies, had 29 respondents, and we found that a lot of companies are using these programs to address structural racism, reopening the economy, and COVID-19. And what's unique about this program, which really gets me jazzed, is that we've been doing it for so long that we can compare results year over year. So some of that will come out in the slides. I'm gonna pause here for a minute, just give you a snapshot of the companies that were engaged. Quite a bit of number of Fortune 500 companies, globally diverse corporations, but industries vary as well. Finance, manufacturing, ICT, health, services, and so on. There's a great list here, and we appreciate everyone's engagement and support. I'm not going to go to too much here. I think I talked about this, but again, I think the diversity from US, Europe, and Asian based Fortune 500 companies was a big difference from this year compared to last year's. So before I jump into the 5 trends, I'm going to ask our speakers to come off camera and briefly take 1 minute to introduce themselves, who you are, and what your role is. And then we'll ask everyone to go off camera again and dive into the 5 trends. So I will start in natural progression. I already introduced myself. I'm happy to have everyone on and excited to learn more about everyone's interests and questions. But Hamang, I'll hand it right off to you. Hamang Desai, he is the Global Program Director of Corporate Social Responsibility at SAP.
Great. Thank you so much, Gavin. I'm glad to be here with you all and part of this wonderful panel with Laura and Lynn as well on a topic that is very dear to my heart. So as Gavin mentioned, my name is Hamang Desai. I am from SAP, who is a global leader in enterprise software applications and technology. I live in the Philadelphia area, and specifically at SAP, my role is within the Global Corporate Social Responsibility, or CSR team, and I manage a number of different pro bono volunteering programs, most notably the SAP Social Sabbatical, but also, as I'll be sharing more about today, some other new and innovative initiatives that we have been able to put together over the past year plus, I'll say, in the global pro bono space as well. So looking forward to this conversation. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Hamang. Appreciate that. Next, we have Laura Fedorov, Portfolio Manager of the Medtronic Foundation.
Thanks, Gavin. Hi, nice to meet everybody. I'm really happy to be on the panel. I work for the Medtronic Foundation. I specifically focus on skills-based volunteering, similar to Hamang and Lynn. And this has really provided us a huge opportunity in the last year to be creative and innovative. And so I'm very excited to dig into this conversation.
Excited to have you. Thanks for joining. Last, we have Lynn Quayle, lead social advocacy and volunteerism lead at Under Armour.
Hi, thanks so much for having me today. I'm really excited for this panel. As you mentioned, I'm the lead of our social advocacy and volunteerism at Under Armour. And a big focus of what I do within my role is manage our global team of volunteers within our teammate base to leverage them throughout all of our communities across the globe. So really excited to be here today.
Great, appreciate it. So as you can see, we have a great set of panelists. I think we had some really great conversations during our preparation, so we're in luck. I think we're going to have some good insights later on. I think everyone has some really good lessons learned from this past year based on their portfolios and adjusting and so on. So I'm going to ask our panelists to go off camera. This is not just an exercise in testing our IT. This is just part of the plan. So I really appreciate it. Now we're going to jump into the 5 trends. I just want to pause and remind everyone that there's a lot in this report. If you haven't looked at it yet, please download it. You can go right to our website, pyxeraglobal.org, download it. There are a lot of great nuggets and information in there, suggestions and advice. What I'm going to go through today is really high level. And if we have time, we'll dive into some more details, answer those questions. But I just wanted to frame it and then run through some of the structures here. 5 trends. I'm going to go through each of them. All of them are pretty significant. Some of them we kind of knew based on our experiences going through the past year, but it was great to have over 29 companies confirm what we were seeing in the industry. 1, corporations are leveraging their employees as an agile resource to tackle structural racism and COVID-19. We saw another trend on adaptive partnerships and how important those are to navigate these social and crises that we've seen, especially the pandemic, structural racism, health. So we saw quite a bit partnerships evolving and changing with employees and stakeholders and implementing partners. So we'll get into that in a minute. We saw that the increased focus on community this past year, everything got turned upside down, and a lot of employees pushed to do more in their local communities, and the companies reacted to that, and we'll talk about that. And business leaders' responsibility has increased. We've seen that CSR and sustainability professionals that have been engaged in managing the Pro Bono programs are also getting pulled to engage with the business department or how to address the environmental, social, and governance issues. So we'll talk a little bit more about ESG. Another hot topic, virtual Pro Bono is here to stay for a number of reasons. But in-person is also proven, equally as important, and a lot of companies have built flagship programs on those in-person programs while also building and evolving virtual programs. So a lot to cover. Trend 1, corporations are leveraging their employees as an agile resource to take action on urgent social issues such as structural racism and COVID-19. Despite starting COVID starting 2020 with some significant disruptions, a lot of companies really wanted to engage their employees and leverage Pro Bono as an adaptable tool to be resilient and to address some of these issues. Companies responded significantly. We saw roughly 2/3 of companies responding to the COVID crisis through Pro Bono programming. More than 50% of companies expect their programs to support the recovery, the global economy recovery. Nearly 20% of companies indicated anti-racism and racial justice as one of the top priorities for the next 2 years. What we saw in this last trend, nearly 20%, we saw that there's also a lot of opportunity and growth there. We're going to see more and more companies engage with their diversity and inclusion departments, and we see quite a bit more growth there. Trend 2, partnerships. I like this one quite a bit because it's near and dear to our heart at Pyxera Global. We talk about partnerships. They are sometimes messy, they're interesting, but they're necessary to achieve goals. What we found was that the partnership with employees significantly increased. Employees wanted to do something. They wanted to react to structural racism, the COVID-19 crisis, health disparities. The employees really pushed. And the employees really allowed the companies to take that rhetoric and move to action. We also found that partnerships really important for host organizations. A lot of companies wanted to react to some of the social issues, and having existing partnerships, having existing trust processes in place with existing host organizations allowed a lot of companies to act faster and to really make some significant impact. And then thirdly, we found that companies who had existing relationships with implementing partners such as Pyxera Global or others, that those relationships were really used for ideating. There was co-creation. There was a mutual understanding of let's be agile, let's try, let's innovate. And those partnerships really enabled the companies to try some new things and create some really new programs, cool programs. And we'll see that from our speakers later on. Third, the importance of community. I think that's evolved over a number of years. We saw in 2014, the importance of the Pro Bono programs to companies was to engage employees and engage them in skills-based volunteering. Now we're seeing that it's the priority now is to make impact, social impact, and use employees and engage employees to make strategic decisions on tackling issues that are important to their CSR strategy, or even flexing to social issues that might not have been part of their CSR strategy in the past. And what we found is that the employees really pushed. They wanted to be more connected to the issues and the organizations that needed help right in their backyard. So companies had to adjust. They wanted more programs, or they had to enact more programs where the company is based and where their employees live and work. And what we're finding too is that it's also beneficial for a lot of from a business stance for companies. Building those stakeholders in their local community, building trust, building the awareness that they are good stewards and they are working on their license to operate. That does and can help with their business and risk mitigation. I know I'm flying through these and because we have limited time, but again, just a reminder, please take a look at the report. Please put your questions into the question chat function. We will have quite a bit of time to answer those. But trend number 4, we are seeing quite a bit of the roles of sustainability and CSR leaders changing significantly over the past year and staying that way and evolving even more in the coming years. We've seen that nearly 80% of sustainability and CSR professionals believe their roles are going to change as a result of the COVID-19 crisis. The leaders are being asked to integrate more and work with investor relations. They're asked to work more with their sustainability or circular counterparts. They're engaging more with their D&I offices or employee resource groups, or they're being asked to put a plan into action as a result of the company's commitment to act on social issues, whether it is structural racism or rebuilding the economy. And I think that here's a pretty cool slide. We a lot of the respondents have said that the role is going to change. 25% noted the level of responsibility and importance within the firm is adjusting. We've seen in the past that some divisions and CSR professionals are somewhat siloed sometimes from the business units or HR, talent development, or D&I. So we very optimistic and great to see that changing. 25% see their role advancing in community engagement. 17% see their role adjusting and working maybe with business units and the company at large on agility and innovation. 13% are seeing their role increase on COVID-19 relief. And new topics too. And I've always said this, and I steal this line from one of my old colleagues, that, you know, Go Pro Bono is a multi-purpose tool or a Leatherman. You have employees with great drive and they want to do something. You have a process set up or you have a program already in place, but you can adjust the topics to meet those societal issues. And we've seen that over the past year and more, that companies have had employees that want to address some of these real social issues. And then 8% more focus on D&I and social justice. Again, I think there's room to grow there. We saw it in an opening poll, so there's quite a bit of interest there. And we're going to see it and hear it from some of our colleagues on the call today. And we see this with our colleagues in CSR and sustainability, aligning more and engaging with the company's ESG strategy, or even being part of creating the ESG strategy. So many companies have moved forward viewing CSR and sustainability as business opportunity to drive innovation, mitigate risk, and reach ESG targets. We've been having a lot of conversations with some of our clients and partners, and they are more and more weaving their way into the sustainability ESG conversations, but also the metrics. We've seen 25% of companies consider ESG to be one of the most important channels to showcase the Go Pro Bono programs. And I think we're going to see more and more over the coming years as companies restructure, programs align, and companies see the importance of using Go Pro Bono to build on the S, to build on the E, and the G as well. Last but not least, which will be a great conversation during our panelist time, is virtual Go Pro Bono is here to stay. It's not going anywhere, but in-person is going to come back. It's indispensable. It's also has different priorities and meets a lot of different goals for a lot of companies. But what we thought, or what companies thought might be a temporary fix, whether it is creating a new virtual program or adapting existing programs to virtual, now that they see that it offers a tremendous amount of value. And I like to say that we own virtual. A virtual program has its benefits, and in-person has its separate benefits, but it's here to stay. It has a lot of benefits, and you know why. It's easily to scale. It's less expensive. It's more flexible. You can reach different areas and different types of employees. Talk about diversity and inclusion, right? Not everyone wants to travel, and it's not possible. And sometimes it's easier to manage. And I'll go into some other quotes, but a lot of people have excelled in increasing, tripling their programs in the past year with virtual at a fraction of the cost. So we see here in 2020, the practice, I think, underwent a series of innovations and pivots, and we continue to see innovations in this space. I like this quote from the report. This is from one of the 29 respondents. We've been able to increase our virtual Go Pro Bono numbers by 500% and decrease the cost to support these programs. So we're going to see more of integration of virtual Pro Bono programs in a lot of portfolios in the years to come. a majority of companies plan to resume in-person program. That's not going to change. We thought that, we're still guessing when we will go back to in-person, and I'll get to that in a minute, but the benefits of in-person program and why those programs are so important to some of the 29 respondents is, you get that face-to-face interaction. You actually, what we call heat experiences, whether you're in a hot environment or you're just in an uncomfortable environment as well. You get firsthand looked at the culture, and you can, be agile and get a local context of things. I usually get the question quite a bit recently, when will we return to in-person, this year or next year? But, I think one of the questions I asked the panelists too, but one of the things that we've always been saying, and I'll give a little piece there, is that I think we can expect quite a bit of curated programs in this calendar year, whether it's in the US or more highly vaccinated areas, or in regional areas where we might have local programs or regionally based individuals from companies traveling to a location. But a lot of factors to play into there. And more to come during conversation, but also more thought leadership pieces to come out from Pyxera Global on questions you should be asking yourself on how to return to in-person. Lastly, how to build a resilient program. I love this. Of the 29 companies that responded to the survey, 4 indicated they managed to maintain and even exceed their program expectations, in some cases during COVID-19. They increased the volume. And they also made some really unique changes to tackle some different issues that were happening, whether it is community health centers or Black-owned businesses. We've seen quite a lot of innovation and exceeding their pre-COVID engagement. How did they do that? They encourage employees to take ownership. The employees have tons of passion. They want to be part of the design process. Developing the program around that, allowed them to succeed. Surrounding their program with agile and committed stakeholders. That could be D&I, that could be stakeholders, nonprofit organizations, that could be new stakeholders, including your employees, to build and expand such programs. But we also found too that those programs that really exceeded and went above and beyond, they were given the flexibility to innovate, ideate, try something, fail, and just go out of the box and maybe get out of their CSR or sector focus areas and try something new, because it was also good for the community. And it's something that their employees were asking for. I'm going to pause there, take a breath, drink some water, ask my speakers to come back on camera, give me a break, come share. All the eyes are on me. I appreciate it. Thank you. And you can come off mute, and we're going to switch gears. We'll leave this on for 1 minute, and then I'm going to close down the slides. We're just going to have a conversation. And again, let's set the expectation here. We want to have fun. We want to try to answer as many questions as possible. And I see they're already popping in there. And I hope our speakers are reading. I'm trying to juggle 2 screens here. And again, reach out if you have questions. Either if we can connect you with the speakers on today, or we can set up another time to have a conversation or walk through the state of the practice report. All right, the slides are gone. How is everyone feeling? Will I take a sip of water?
Good.
Great.
It's a lot of information to go through. And when I was reading through the slides, the report yesterday, I got so excited because you can geek out on it. And our team did such a good job. And after reading it in a Word document and reading it in mock-up slides and then reading the final product 2 to 3 times over, there's some great little nuggets in there for, those CSR or sustainability professionals or anyone, a D&I professional that doesn't have a program, that is interested in starting a program, that currently has a program and wants to know what other people are doing, or trying to figure out how to get more senior level executive buy-in. There's so much there. And I keep on reiterating that, but I'm going to jump into some questions. And I told our panelists to raise their hands, whether it's through the hand function or just visually do that to jump in. We want to have a conversation. But again, Hamang, thank you to SAP. Thank you to yourself for, when I came to you many, many months ago, say, hey, what do you think about this? There was no question on your side. So thank you for the support in making this happen. But yeah, why was it important to SAP to sponsor such a report? Kind of had an idea where we're going, through the playbook out. It wasn't the standard, let's just take the pulse, but we really wanted to capture of how this past year had an impact on the practice area. So walk me through your thinking and, why did SAP really want to support this initiative?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Gavin, and appreciate the partnership on this report as well. I'm glad to have been able to sponsor it. I think as far as the reasons why we did that, having been practitioners in the global pro bono space with our social sabbatical program for now almost a decade, we have seen the power of pro bono and the role that programs like the ones that all of us run here can play in addressing societal challenges. And I don't think anyone needs a reminder of all the challenges we have faced over the last year. But really that the thing that stands out is in addition to the challenges, how we have had to rethink the ways in which we live and work, right? And this then applies to the pro bono space as well, on how we are able to innovate and transform and pivot, which is, I think, the most used term in the last probably 12 months or so. But at SAP, we believe strongly in kind of this idea of data-driven decision-making. But from my experience, one of the things that gets cut first when there's times of crises or economic uncertainty is really investment in research, such as what this report provides. And we just felt that the amount of value that this kind of research and these data-driven insights provide, and you kind of touched on this, right? For companies that are already running programs to learn from each other, kind of do the best practice sharing, identify synergies and partnership opportunities like we've done with some of the companies as well in the past. And we just thought that was too much to lose if we did not have such an opportunity to showcase kind of the global pro bono field. And the second is, more importantly as well, how do we inspire additional companies to come forward, right? In ways big and small. We love to use the start small, maybe small pilot. But as I like to call it, let's expand the global pro bono pie so we can all have bigger pieces, but we also get everyone a slice, right? Get more people to have a slice. So that's kind of how I think about the pro bono practice area that we are so involved in, all of us.
Great, appreciate that. And I see the questions coming in, and our panelists are looking at those. But 2 points, Hamang. I think when we're looking at the COVID crisis, and a lot of the companies that participated, they continued the programs. Some paused. And we felt that it was not a time to pause their social activities. It was a time to, and I think this thought leadership and really putting quite a bit of effort into this report, these panels and conversations is really important there. And I think this is a question that came through too, and I think you hit it, is start small. And not every company has a formalized CSR program. How companies start, they always start small. Start with a pilot, start with a multi-company program where you can send one person and get a feel for it. And there's some of that information on our website. Engage with an employee resource group. Have them drive local, no-cost programs where you might not even need an implementing partner, and see what they're doing there, right? So that's a great question there. Laura, I'm going to move on to you. And I have my questions here, and I'm going to try to read off them. But yeah, I think Medtronic had a journey. There was a lot of things that happened, and I think you're gonna probably hit on a lot of these questions that come through. But why was it important for Medtronic, or why is it important for any company to remain agile with regards to the focus of the Go Pro Bono programming. And there's probably 2-3 parts to this thing, but why did the Medtronic Foundation pivot its Go Pro Bono program to address the pressing needs in the healthcare space?
Yeah. Well, we had a moment. I'm sure every single group here and everyone logging into this call had that same moment where we had to decide what we were going to do. And there was talk where everyone was like, every employee is experiencing this pandemic, and is everyone too kind of self-focused on self-preservation to kind of reach outwards and give to communities? And there wasn't even a moment that we had to think about that when employees they reached out to us actually, and they were like, we need to do something. What can we do? Medtronic is a medical technology company. The company was responding obviously in many different ways. And of course our foundation had to respond as well and wanted to respond. And I think also our employees are uniquely positioned. We have doctors, we have different medical practitioners, people who think about processes, people think about design. Like I just felt like we had this, 90,000+ company of employees that could bring service in such like an incredibly pressing time. And, we have worked closely with Pyxera for so long, and we've always had this in-person, very small global pro bono program, really curated, working hand in hand with our grantee partners and focusing on sustainability. And we didn't want to lose the really important pieces like that of working with our partners and making sure that we were doing something of quality and Gavin, something you said earlier really resonated when you were like, you really want to focus on helping everyone and making sure everyone, gets something. And that's like my motto when I start a project. I'm like, I want every person who engages with this project to come out a winner, that, our employees come out winners because they had a great project. Our partners got something out of it that's really useful and helps push them forward. So anyway, we really felt strongly that we had to figure out how to do this in this space, transition it to virtual. And in fact, we are one of those companies that actually far exceeded what we'd ever done before. We went from, 30 employees in 2019 to over 200 employees doing skills-based projects. So, it really, like, when you have to look for a silver lining in a really intense period of time, for us, it just allowed creativity to explode. And that was based on working with you guys, with Pyxera and, our amazing team that was just ready to be really creative. And then our partners, we had trust, and we were like, okay, let's figure out how we can bring you assistance, even if we can't come there in person. So it was so important to us and really brought us so much value, honestly, across the board.
Yeah, and I think the partnerships and trust, I think what we found that a lot of organizations were getting bombarded with requests, and some are still, right? Mm-hmm. But having that, that existing relationship, that trust there, they're knowing the quality of employee that they're getting, just made things operate so much faster, right? So I can't overemphasize the importance for relationships and maintaining relationships. Yeah. And I love the agile and changing. I really like the trainer of trainers program that you created, which is different, right? It's not the 5 people go in and let's really work with the health center. It was engaging a lot of Medtronic employees. That's something that was so needed, but building the capacity of these organizations to do their job more effectively, to engage more organizations. So I really appreciate that. Great. Anything to say on the train the trainers? Any comments or background?
Sorry, I so we still continue to do the classic small team matched with our partners, and it was all virtual. And then we added another complete model that literally we created with our partners kind of out of the blue. And the first organization we worked with was Project Hope, which is one of our disaster response partners. And traditionally we were just partners with them as a grant, as a funder. And they generally don't work with pro bono volunteers. And normally we just say no, like, no, thank you. That's not how we, work with our partners. And this time, they said this pandemic is different than anything we've ever experienced, a different kind of problem. And, we're willing to think out of the box and do something different.
Yeah.
And what they had done is partnered with Brown University to create a COVID-19 response package for medical professionals. So internationally, and with a high focus on actually non-US focus, but they did also training in US. But to really say, like, how do you respond to this disease that we don't know anything about? How do you do intake? How do you do even like resuscitation? So definitely medically focused. And when we started thinking about our employee base, we were thinking, wow, we have doctors, medical professionals who are actively engaging. And so let's see if we have any of those doctors who are willing to take this training, become trainers themselves, and then present this to medical professionals. And so we had 13 different Medtronic employees who became trainers. They worked together to give these trainings in Bangladesh, Myanmar, and the US Virgin Islands, and a couple more. And in the end, they trained directly almost, I think, 300 people, and then through cascade training. So the people they trained became trainers. And I think they hit almost like 3,000 different people of training in this space, which is amazing. And that's only the Medtronic piece, whereas Project Hope hit many, many more thousands of people through this program. So it was really, really valuable for our employees to be part of that. They found so much, they felt like they were really helping.
Great, I love that cascading effect there.
Yeah.
Lynn, Under Armour, when we first started talking a couple of months ago, was really making a big focus on the community. Can you tell us a little bit about your approach during COVID, and why was that so important, and what kind of challenges or lessons learned that you gained out of this?
Sure. So, I think now more than ever, and during the pandemic, it was important to us and our employees, which we refer to as teammates, to be involved in our communities, and also for our teammates to feel a sense of community. A lot of us working from home, some had families and were dealing with kids running around and homeschooling, while others were all alone. So really building up that sense of community. It was really encouraging to see the amount of our teammates that really wanted to get more involved and get more engaged. And we always try and support programs and partners where we're uniquely positioned to add value. And so with the onset of the pandemic, we leveraged our innovation team to help develop PPE, and we leveraged our logistics teams to work with a food bank on helping supply food. So leveraging those different teammates and different departments that really had those areas of expertise that could provide value. And really, it was a pivot for us, considering that we are always focused on the athletic spirit and really providing access to sport with youth. And this is kind of a difference, but it's what was needed in our community. So we really made that pivot and leveraged our resources similarly to how we typically would anyways.
Right.
And as it relates to complexities, we're a global company, as are, I'm sure, most everyone here. And the cultures are different, the regions are different, the countries, the communities themselves, each of them are different. There's different regulations. Everyone is handling the pandemic differently. And so it was really important for us to leverage our local teammates on the ground that we refer to as our community action captains, and staying in close contact with each of them to understand what was going on in their local communities so we could meet them where they're at. And really not go in telling them what they need to do, but understand what the needs of those communities are and understanding how we are positioned so that we can support.
And then with vaccines rolling out and the continued engagement in the community, how will your approach stay the same? How would your engagement be with, I guess, more underserved communities?
Yeah, our approach will be similar, and we'll still have that same approach with where we're uniquely positioned to add value, especially with everything that occurred over the past year and a half. One of our main focuses is going to be providing sport to youth and bringing them back to sport. But also we're making sure that the coaches, we partnered with Coaching Corps to provide empathy training to coaches throughout the US and things like that are really going to be important for those youth as they get back into sport, so that they have the resources that they need. with the adults in their life, having that training and understanding where they're coming from, because everyone's been through a lot, and it's going to be really important that we're helping them all through it.
Great, I appreciate that. And I think you mentioned, I'm kind of skipping around on my questions, but the product led to a purpose-led company. I think that was really interesting, and that came out in some of the survey responses, and then I think in the highlight in the state of the practice. But can you just give us a high level, what was that journey like, and how is that impacting your role now?
Yeah, so it's more than selling shirts and sneakers at this point. It's about empowering those who strive for more. And that's really, from a community standpoint, it's what our mission has really been in our department all along. But now it's really encouraging because we are ingrained in everything that we do. We work a lot more cross-functionally with all of our partners across our organization. And that's also where we're seeing a lot more of these pro bono opportunities and areas where we can involve our teammates more, because all of the leaders are thinking of things a little bit differently. It's not just the sales numbers, it's how is what we're doing impacting others so that they can do more. And so it's been really great to kind of elevate the work that we're doing and to be able to amplify our impact.
Great, appreciate that. So I got a time check notice. We have around 15 minutes left, so I want to ask one or two, but again, feel free to, you've seen some of the questions in the chat, but Haman, we've seen a lot of companies vocalize their commitments, or they want to take action on racial justice, but not everyone's done it, right? A few have moved from rhetoric to action. Why was it so important for SAP to, not only verbalize that commitment, but be that leader and move to action? And can you tell us a little bit about why you did that and what that programming is like?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Gavin. So I think, within our work at SAP CSR, we take great pride in kind of that thoughtful programmatic approach and kind of something that's more action oriented. And from the very beginning of our, overall social justice response, which wasn't just CSR, that was an all company response, including D&I, obviously our leadership, and many other groups as well. We want to kind of focus on three main areas: our employees and their well-being. That was kind of the immediate term need at the moment. Short-term response, so support for some of our partners like Equal Justice Initiative and so on, that do a lot of the advocacy as well as employee giving. But the third and piece where my role comes in the most is this idea of kind of a mid to long-term programmatic response. And we could just see how global pro bono, in our experience, could be a very effective vehicle in creating that kind of lasting, sustainable change. As we started looking a little bit closer at the research and the impact that systemic racism has on Black entrepreneurs, as well as exacerbated by COVID-19 and the impact of the pandemic, it became really clear that focusing on providing pro bono support to Black-owned businesses would be critical, right, to their ongoing success. And this is where we created a program in partnership with Pyxera Global called Pro Bono for Economic Equity, which really focuses on providing, critical business and professional skills to Black-owned businesses and Black-owned social enterprises. And we've really seen the kind of transformative change that such an engagement can have for these businesses, and the long-term benefits that they continue to see. On the flip side, it was really important that our employees, and we've seen this come out in the practice, in the state of the practice report as well, around the desire for employees to take charge, right? Employees to be engaged and really take meaningful action in a tangible manner. And we have totally seen that energy and passion. We are in the middle of wrapping up kind of our first phase of assignments. And we had more than 100 employees who raised their hand to participate in the program. Unfortunately, we could only select about half of them for this cohort, but we will certainly keep the rest in mind for upcoming opportunities. And it's been really great to hear some of the personal stories, how vulnerable people have been about the topic, and going through a lot of that learning, which we have developed kind of in partnership with you guys, or over at Pyxera Global in the design phase. Things like, how can we make sure there's tangible action and commitments that employees make that are authentic and they can actually do that. And yeah, I mean, at this point, we're looking forward to expanding the program in the second half of the year, also internationally, so outside of the US, going out to 3 more markets, Brazil, South Africa, and the UK. So definitely very excited to work with, so many innovative and fantastic businesses and bring, SAP talent to them to support.
Great. Appreciate that. Yeah, I think there's a lot there to unpack. And I think we're going to see more. Hemang is also speaking at some other upcoming webinars and on their Pro Bono for Economic Equality program as well. So I got 2 questions left, and I'm going to do a little bit differently. And I can guess a few, but maybe the answers are very super short. Any new or surprising partnerships or stakeholders that you engaged with this past year? Laura, real quick, anything that comes to mind?
I guess maybe transitioning some of our partners from grantees to pro bono, usually, not grantees, but like, for example, Project Hope, who was fully just disaster response and only was receiving funding, and they became a partner in that space. Or we also partnered in a similar with American Heart Association, which was a new partner. And they were just completely willing to, again, be really creative and transition some of the work that they had been doing in person to kind of a virtual setting. And it was really just a full collaboration. And just like our partnership with Pyxera for all of this was really just kind of that throwing spaghetti against the wall to be like, okay, what can we do? What about this? What if we could get 100 employees to do, it was just really trying to kind of like see what we can do and where we could bring, like, we didn't want employees just to feel like they were kind of ticking a box of engaging or, of helping. We wanted real outcomes to be coming out of the work that they were doing. So
and any new surprising internal partnerships?
This whole year we've been going through kind of a meeting brigade of like trying to speak to new groups, definitely ERGs for sure. We've had a really great partnership with HR and especially leadership programs. But we also we just found out that there was something called Consult for the Business, where they were bringing consultants in to do internal business projects. And we said, hey, could we put some of our projects on your platform for like community assistance? And they were like, that's great. We're always looking for projects. So definitely. And the part of that is us really reaching out and putting these meetings on the calendar and just talking to people about how we can bring assistance across the board and like mutually benefit each other.
Great. Hemang, Lynn, do you have anything to add or any surprising internal partners that might be that came across this past year? And I need to jump to one last question because I think it's our intriguing one.
Just very quickly to add there, I think internally we've definitely seen a higher degree of collaboration, especially with our Pro Bono for Economic Equity program, with groups like Diversity and Inclusion, as well as our ERGs as well, who we work with quite closely anyway in CSR. But I think it's also presented some opportunities for partnerships in areas that we would typically not have gone into. So for example, the work we did with the Reimagine Community Health Systems Challenge in partnership with Medtronic Foundation as well on working with community health centers, right? That is a little bit outside our lane, if you will, when you look at our focus areas, but it was nice to be able to step out of the box, think about broader skill sets and how those can be put to use.
Great, appreciate it. Lynn, anything to add before I jump into our final?
Just real quickly, just more so I would say from our leaders throughout the organization, we had a real focus on DE&I, and our leaders really took that to heart and created their own groups within their organizations and then would partner with us to identify areas of opportunity. So it's a huge topic to tackle. And I think understanding that they could make the impact on one person's life and really starting small, I think that was one of the differences.
Great, appreciate that. Yeah, I find the stakeholder mapping oddly exciting. And if you can talk to all you don't know what you're going to get out of it. It could be a whole new idea, new resources, funding, ease of doing your job, right? A greater presence, and so on. Last question. and we'll probably, hopefully we're answering some of the participant questions during these conversations. But we talked about the virtual is here to stay, in-person is coming back. This is open conversation, open question to everyone. What do you think about the future of virtual and in-person Go Pro Bono programming? From where you stand, your experience, and remember, you're talking to your peers, you're talking to, there's nonprofit organizations on the call, there are individuals that have programs, don't have programs, just starting a CSR division. What are your thoughts on the future of in-person and virtual Go Pro Bono program? And I will randomly, who wants to raise their hand first? There we go.
Just super quickly, I really do think this was an opportunity that we kind of didn't know we needed to be pushed in this direction. I had several employees reach out and say, I've always wanted to do this kind of work, but I couldn't leave my family, or my job made it that I couldn't leave for that amount of time altogether. And so there was actually a lot of people who felt that it almost kind of opened up the opportunity for more people that felt kind of that it was not even possible. So it kind of gave us a greater population to engage. That said, I do think some of our in-person projects that it is very specific, like what you can achieve in person. And our framework is built on human-centered design and really co-collaboration. And there's something about being there in person and meeting the stakeholders face-to-face that has a different value. And I think certain projects are kind of only possible in person. So I really think that there's a space for a hybrid approach, where we potentially have some of our, and hybrid as well as keeping some virtual only projects. I think there's definitely a space to really flex our innovative muscles and really see what we can build and keep our numbers high. And like, people want to engage, and we need to meet them where they are.
Yeah, I think a question from the audience, and it was for you, is virtual engagement the reason for the significant increase? You can engage a lot more people and space it out at a longer period of time instead of going in person for however long it is, and it's less costly because they're not paying for travel and everything. That's
right. And we were able to overlap projects, so we were engaged. We were doing more than one project at a time, which you can't do in person because it takes so much kind of focus. And we also increased our models. So we're doing like 3 different models of types of volunteering that allowed us to work with more volunteers.
Yeah, if I could just come in on top of that. So completely agree with what Laura said. I think it's a great opportunity that this has provided us. And I think at SAP, we were already thinking about virtual pro bono prior to the pandemic. And what the pandemic has really done is allowed us to accelerate the work, right? And I think, just in the interest of time, I can talk about this topic for like 20 minutes. But what I would like to just say, for anyone on the line thinking about virtual pro bono, it's important that you not look at that as a Band-Aid, right? This is not just a temporary, we'll do it while, global travel is shut down, but really think about it strategically from a long-term perspective. That's what we're doing, right? Any virtual programming that we've introduced, we are looking at it as really a means to scale reach, to the point Laura was just making, but also scale impact in different ways across geographies, right? Knocking down those geographical boundaries. And absolutely, I agree that in-person programming has its pros, and they are very strong, as we have seen for many years now. And it is absolutely going to remain part of the overall strategy. But I think the two can coexist for very specific reasons and purposes within the strategy. They both serve a very specific role and play a specific role in the program. And at SAP, we are absolutely looking forward to resuming our in-person programming while continuing the work we're doing on the virtual programs along the way.
Great, appreciate that.
I got like the 30 seconds. But just to piggyback off of that, I think we will also be looking at a hybrid approach and doing both virtual and in-person moving forward. I think it's been really important for the fact that our teams are global as well, being able to offer the opportunities there to have virtual so that our teammates across the globe are able to support the same project. I think we've seen a huge impact with that. And I got an email from our head of security yesterday and talking about in person, and he said, it's a crawl, walk, run situation here. And I have a 1-year-old at home, and I'll say it's like the 4-month crawl. We're like just starting to scooch. We're not getting anywhere yet, but almost there.
Well, I appreciate that. And, you know, mention hybrid, and maybe I'll end on this, but yeah, I think we're expecting quite a bit more hybrid, especially as there still a lot unknowns when you can do international or global travel. So a lot of companies are starting virtual with the intention, maybe sometime in 2022, there'll be some in-person or curated type activities. But again, I thank you so much for preparing, having calls, and then getting on this call and having a conversation with us and sharing all the lessons learned. You have so much knowledge, and I ask people on this call and your colleagues to connect, because you're not alone. Someone is either thinking about it or has been through it, to share ideas, and I'm happy to make connections as well. But again, thank you, speakers. Thank you for everyone for attending today. Again, reach out. I think my email address is going to be shared. We will be sending the recording and the report afterwards. But that's it, folks. That is 1 hour, and thank you again.
Thanks, Gavin.
Great. Thanks, Gavin. Thanks, everyone. Bye.